Hey guys, it's Neil. Just a quick recap. This is where the garage started. It was pretty rough. At the end of our first video, I got most of the stuff set up, but we still had the space over here that I wanted to work on. So what we're going to talk about today is how we went from this and we came to this. Stay tuned. I'ma go get it tonight. So I started out with these pretty pro plans, kind of just getting some measurements and kind of setting up what I thought I wanted. And then I like to make stuff. They had a great tutorial, Bob, on that channel. Put up a workflow that you can download that tells you all the cuts you need to make for a really awesome miter station. And I wasn't exactly going to follow it, but it really gave me the guidelines that I wanted. Everything was set up so I could roll stuff under. I just went through and kind of put my own measurements to it, turned from that into this. I had all my cuts and I knew what I needed to make. So I don't know if anyone's ever tried to carry wood in a Subaru Outback, but here's how you do it. You throw the front seat back and you throw the back seat forward, and actually gives you 8 feet there. Throw your boards in, plenty of room. About another 1.5 feet there, I could have got a 10-foot board, but you have to make this work with 8 foot. So from there, I had my boards. I knew what I needed to cut, and I used the cut list calculator to tell me how to cut it. Mad props to Hart's multi-cat lightweight recycled clumping litter too. This was the first cut that saw was made in about 1.5 years. Felt pretty good. I was pretty excited to get stuff going. Working on the ground is a young man's game, and my knees will definitely appreciate getting this thing going so I can work at a normal height. This is a red pine. It ended up being about a 322, I think, per 8 foot board. So pretty economical, pretty cheap stuff. I thought it looked really pretty. It was worth 60 cents more to me than the regular pine. And the board selection that they had was so much straighter and had less knots and everything, so it's definitely the way to go for me. This was the first chance I got to use the pocket hole jig, and really dig it. It's pretty easy to use. You read through the instructions, get a couple of things set up, and just make sure you've got all the measurements to the right board thickness you're cutting, or drilling into rather. And that's about it. We'll have a little bit more footage later showing the setup, screwing everything together, but it was pretty easy. we got everything cut, drilled, and it's time to put it together. So we started out, and you're going to build the left and the right frame of the table. I broke this up into a couple sections because I really wanted to build one, get everything set up, and make sure it was the right height. Because I was a little worried about it whenever I tested it out. I felt it might be a little high for me. I think it'd be good to cut boards on, do some stuff, but for some other projects I probably want it a little bit lower. Turns out that I was right. Once I got it built, I made some changes to the plans and was able to make a smaller one for the left side. This was the first time that I'd used the pocket hole jig, like I mentioned, and just as I was a little shy with the first couple of holes I put into the boards, I was a little shy here too, trying to figure everything out, making sure it was going in right, and keeping the good angles and the wood was staying straight and stuff like that. But after probably like first 4, maybe 6 holes that I drilled, I really got the hang of it. Saw what it was doing, got the feel for when it was connecting and all that stuff, and it went a lot easier. And once I got this last screw in here, we completed the first leg, or I guess the first frame that's going to act as the legs. So got one more to go, and then we'll knock out putting it together. So we finishing up the second frame here, and we are going to bust out the jig again. Put some holes in the sides of the board so that we can connect these two together. I'm not going to go a lot into the build here specifically. I feel like Bob does a pretty good job on that, and he did the work there. He's got the plans, so I'm more just kind of showing off my technique and kind of some of these things I'm figuring out for the first time. Alright, first one built up. So this was the spot that I initially thought I was going to put it, where I had my wheelie cart for a little bit. Squat game was pretty strong there, if you couldn't tell. But once I kind of played around with the height where it was at, I kind of felt like it'd be better off in the corner. Went ahead and moved it over there eventually. Create a lot of sawdust working on projects like this, and it's good to have some help. Even if his game isn't the tightest, he's working on it. At this stage, I just give him an A for effort. Good to have him around. So we got the first bench set up, the first piece of 2 here. We're gonna go ahead and build up the second one, and also set up the little table that the miter saw goes on in the middle. A lot of you probably know this, but you'll notice that I touched the saw blade to the wood before I cut. And the way that I'm marking this, I'm just kind of making sure that the saw blade is hitting exactly where I want it to. There's kind of a 1/8 of an inch to the left or the right that it's going to cut, and so just trying to get as close as I can. I could definitely tell that the height of the taller workbench area was not going to work right in the middle for me, so I went ahead and moved everything over a little bit, and you can kind of see as I put it together here, the smaller workbench is perfect height for myself and my wife, who's a lot smaller than me, but still kind of keeps it high enough that the kids aren't immediately getting into stuff, at least until they get a little bit older. Work slowed down a little bit in the garage because it got pretty cold for us. So this is one of many of these that I recorded, but I had to keep it clean. The wood for the top of the workbench here is just a maple plywood. I really like the grain. They were able to rip it down at the store so I could make it fit, and then I'm going to trim some pieces later just to cover the whole thing. There's a little error that I had, was a little bit taller than what I planned. I was not really paying attention to all these pieces, didn't think about having to set something flat on it. So I'm going to highlight kind of how I went about fixing that. I really just sanded down a little bit of the 2x4. This is the box that's going to sit in between the left and right tables here, and it's going to be the home for the miter saw. So I'm just kind of getting it set up. I've got all this stuff measured out and balanced, just kind of getting the final pieces in place here. All the holes that I drilled for this maple top were countersunk, so we could get it nice and flat. noise, okay?
Okay.
Be ready, it's gonna be loud. I'm gonna do it and then we're gonna start cutting. Yeah, who needs a table saw when you got this? This is just a circular saw guide rail. You can pick them up fairly cheap, and a couple clamps and some duct tape. You're able to stick it down, and it really helps out. Alright, this is the gearbox. It's made by Gladiator. We built the larger gearbox on an earlier episode. This is the wall mount one, so this will be like a cabinet. Just a quick unboxing here, and then we're going to put it together. One of the big things I learned from putting the large gearbox together was go through and hand tighten these. And then when you set it upright, you can kind of align it a little better. Get the doors going, and once you get everything working, then go through and tighten them down. It makes everything a lot easier. So the way that the wall gearbox works is it has a little French cleat type system in the back, and it just hangs off of the standard gear track that Gladiator makes. And if you got a little helper, it's always good to have some earplugs for them when you're busting out the impact drill. But for the gear track, we just hit it on some studs, and that was all we needed to do. It was able to support the weight of the wall gearbox the two that we hung off of it. To level out the wall gearbox, the instructions suggested putting another gear track behind it. They're about 10-12 bucks, and I found just using a 2x4 worked. Here you can check out the cleat system, and that's how they are secured in there. I see a lot of this stuff kind of changing organically as I'm using it a little more. We got the charging station, the wall gearbox, trying to figure out what goes where. Probably move the shelves around a little bit as things find a home. I know that dust is going to be an issue here, so still got to figure out some stuff there. I'm not a big fan of these little drawers, but I had them and I'm not going to replace them right now. I might look into something cool, build something new for them, but we'll figure that out in a little bit. Outfeed table for the miter saw, pretty close. I was worried, I'll be honest, but it came out pretty good, so no complaints. As always, I hope you guys got some tips or something out of the video. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to post them below. Alright, have a good one.